I want to talk about the false religion of Islam. Islam is mankind's biggest enemy, and that's for those that want to call Islam a religion. Really, I don't think you can. If you tell a lie, a big enough lie, and you keep repeating it, eventually people will come to believe it. In general, Islam forbids lying. The Quran says, "Truly Allah guides not one who transgresses and lies." Surah 40:28. In the Hadith, Muhammad is also quoted as saying, "Be honest because honesty leads to goodness, and goodness leads to paradise. Beware of falsehoods because it leads to immorality, and immorality leads to hell." However, this has not been the case in Islam. Islam is based on lies and contradictions. The biggest scam in Islam, especially Shia Islam, is perhaps the notion of taqiyya, which is an immoral tactic to lie for a good cause and later retract your words. More or less, it's the belief that the end justifies the mean. Islam is all about schemes, war, and violence. The Prophet Muhammad was an extremely violent man. He was a man of war. Historically, Jesus set the example for love, as did Moses. The opposite is true of the Prophet Muhammad. This is why we see so many suicide bombers today. They simply are following what the Prophet of Islam had planned for them. Islam rewards those who become martyrs with 72 virgins. So sex is what the Arab Muslim murderers die for. It's all about sex. This must tell you a lot about the Prophet Muhammad's own appetite for sex. He did not spare anyone. Even 9-year-old girls were not immune to his sexual wrath. Worship a sex-maniac and a child molester? I don't think so. Muslims are true victims of Islam. However, they fail to realize that Islam is a cult, and the Prophet Muhammad was a demon, possessed by a huge sexual appetite. Yes, it is true. True Muslims firmly believe that those who die in the act of killing the infidels, Christians, Jews, and other non-believers, will not only gain entrance into heaven, but will be greeted by 72 virgin women. Most likely, they will all be 9-year-old girls. Being politically correct has backfired in the world, seems to be taken hostage by the Islamic fanatics. The more politicians give in and declare Islam as a peaceful religion, the more they give the Muslim fanatics impetus to harass and intimidate people of the host countries which they have been given shelter to live in. Galileo said, "I do not think it is necessary to believe that the same God who has given us our senses, reason, and intelligence, wishes us to abandon their use, given us by some other means the information that we could gain through them." That statement was true then, and it is also true today. God has bestowed upon humans many different senses, including intelligence, so that we can use them for a better life. The senses He has given us should lead us to enlightenment and prosperity, not the other way around. Is it possible that the Almighty has given these treasures to only a few people and abandoned the rest of His creatures in bewilderment? Intelligence is discerning between true and false, the real and illusionary. Islam ultimately defines the real nature of intelligence as coming to realize the absolute nature of Allah and the relativity of all else that is other than He. The Quran calls those who have gone astray from religion as those who cannot think, those who cannot use their intelligence correctly. It is true that all religions are founded on fear of the unknown, fear of death. However, throughout the years, the world religions were able to find ways to reform themselves, but not Islam. Islam prides itself on having remained unchanged. The Islamic Revolution in Iran represents a clear image of Islam. We do not need to go back 1400 years and see what the Prophet of Islam did. We can see a total replica in the world of his disciple. In the words of his disciple, the Ayatollah Khomeini, and the newly elected president of Iran, Ahmadinejad. This is how Islam advanced rapidly around the world with terror and fear. The Quran says, "Kill, imprison." Why are you only clinging to the part of that talks about mercy? Mercy is against God. Mirab means the place of war, the place of fighting. Out of the mirabs War should proceed just as all wars in Islam used to proceed. The Prophet has had a sword to kill people. The holy imams were quite military men, all of them warriors. They had to wield swords. They used to kill people. We need a caliph who can chop hands and cut throats and stone people. That's out of the Quran. In the same way that the messenger of God used to chop hands, cut throats, and stone people, in the same way that he massacred Jews because they were a bunch of discontented people. That the Prophet used to order to burn a house to exterminate a tribe, that was justice. That's a quote from the Ayatollah Khomeini. Many Islamic scholars vow that Islam is a religion of logic, wisdom, moderation, and peace. They vow that Islam invites people towards insight, knowledge, and uplifts the position of women in their society. This is far from the truth. Islam cannot stand what is logical, and it does not invite people towards insight, but entraps humans with a deadly poison. Once one becomes a Muslim, there is no way out. Islam is about forcing women to wear a hijab, the symbol of backwardness, stupidity. Women are second-class citizens in the Muslim world. The Prophet Muhammad takes his 9-year-old wife to bed. What kind of a man, not to mention a prophet of God, would commit such horrible act of pedophilia? The Quran says women are to be beaten by their husbands. Yet Muslim women apparently are fine with this violence, or they could not wait to divorce Islam and run away. The Quran says 4 wives are allowed, but Muhammad had at least 20, maybe even more. They say in paradise women are chained in different areas for the pleasure of men. Islam is definitely not compatible with logic and democracy. As a matter of fact, Islam is against liberty and freedom. The problem with the Islamic scholars is that they are in denial that the genie is out and now is no way to put it back into the bottle. Kashov Golamani, the Deputy Minister for International Legal Affairs of the Islamic Republic at the Munich Conference on Security Policy, said Islam's prime objective is to strike a balance between Islamic tenets and democratic mechanisms. The extremists have manipulated, misconstructed, and tried to hijack Muslim tenets. What Mr. Golamani said in the conference is misleading and untrue. What Mr. Golamani did not talk about was the achievements of the Islamic Republic for the past 27 years as a model country for the Muslim world. He did not mention about the Islamic executions, floggings, stonings, and amputations of limbs in public since his peaceful religion invaded Iran. He did not speak about the promotion of international and domestic terrorism through Islamic Jihad, the creation of the Hezbollah, who have constructed many terrorist attacks against innocent people, and the promotion of Islamic fundamentalism. He did not say this moderate religion has oppressed the religious minorities in Iran and made them flee their country. He did not mention how savagely the Islamic in Iran have raped innocent girls before executing them because Islam forbids executing virgins. So raping them was very Islamic. Yeah, Islam is very democratic, but only for the Islamic terrorists. Habib Amir, in his article, Views of a Muslim America, wrote, "It must be understood that this is a mistake to imagine that Islam is an inherently violent and fanatical faith. Islam is a universal religion, and there is nothing extreme and anti-Western about it. Doctrinally, Islam is as blameless as others of the great universal religions. But Mr. Amir, Islam is an inherently violent and fanatical faith. It is all written in the Quran. So please, stop lying to the population and face the facts. The problem with Islam lies not only in the Quran, but lies in the life of the Prophet Muhammad himself. Muslims proclaim that the mainstream schools of thought misinterpret the book of Quran. Yet they fail to recognize that the Prophet of Allah lives such an unholy life himself, and it is due to his narcissistic life and personality that his followers savagely follow his behavior. It is due to Muhammad's way of life that Muslims act barbaric and run amok and burn cars and embassies each time someone draws a picture of the Holy Prophet. Behaviorally, the Prophet of Allah hallmarks a cult. In other words, we cannot compare Islam to other religions because due to the Prophet's narcissistic manners, Islam falls into the category of a cult, not a religion. Yes, Islam is a cult, founded by an Arab man from Mecca in Arabia, by the name of Mohammed, who lived from 570 to 632 AD. A huge problem is that cults are incredibly difficult to dismantle intellectually. Their brainwashing is grandioso. Indeed, the Prophet of Islam's deeds and words, Islamic law, and its interpretation has always been totally intolerant, and the Prophet practiced an holy life. According to Muslims, the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, was the last prophet, and Allah would no longer send prophets. Well, if God chose a man like Muhammad, who butchered, raped, terrorized, massacred, and killed so many people with a sword of Islam as his messenger, then we're dealing with a terrorist God at the top. Until we come to terms with these issues and end was a contagious disease, many innocent people will continue to die. The very survival of the civilized world is dependent upon our understanding that Islam is mankind's greatest enemy.